Hey, Kermit Weeks here, Fantasy of Flight, and I'm sitting in front of probably one of my coolest first airplanes I ever had. I was so lucky. I was been flying competition aerobatics. I'd never flown a retractable gear airplane, and my EA chapter in Miami held an air race one time at the Tamiami Airport, where eventually the Weeks Air Museum ended up, and I basically I got fascinated. I was a pylon judge. I got to see all these Corsairs and Bearcats and P-51s fly by. And I don't know anybody in aviation that is worth their salt if they don't love to want to fly or own a P-51. Anyway, I was one of them. But I hadn't flown a retractable gear airplane, and something told me, I said, you know, I need to learn the way they did. So the only reason I went out and bought an AT6 was to learn to eventually fly a P-51. So I got the AT6, and the plan was to own it for a couple of years and fly it, blah, blah, blah. Within 6 months, I'd flown around the country. I'd given a bunch of rides. I'd actually flew it in a sportsman aerobatic contest. That was kind of interesting. And all of a sudden, this Mustang came up on the market. Are you ready for this? This was my first fighter when I was age 25. If you can believe it. It was done up in George Preddy's colors. He was the highest scoring P-51 ace in the war. And anyway, I got this thing, and I had not been in one, and I needed to get checked out in one. The airplane was up in Pennsylvania when I bought it, State College, Pennsylvania. So I went up there with somebody that was a well-known Mustang pilot, and I rode in the back seat, and it was scheduled for an air show up in CWH show up in Hamilton, Ontario in Canada. And so we flew across the border after I bought the airplane. I'm just riding in it. We flew a couple of times, you know, for shows and stuff. Then we flew back down. We got down to Sebring Airport, and I'd read the manual, and I'd felt all the moves, you know, when the landing gear would come down and lock. Anyway, I won't go into the long story, but my first flight only lasted like 4 minutes, and he got out, and I took off, and I had like 4 emergencies, and anyway, that's another story. So anyway, I landed, and he said there was the temp was off the chart, okay, on the coolant, and so I came in and I landed, and I had some other problems. I had a gear red light, you know, and anyway, it turned out it was just a micro switch, but I felt the gear coming down, and we had been up at the air show, and I had they gave us free fuel, obviously, but we had 2 drop tanks, 2 55-gallon drop tanks, and only 1 drop tank would feed. So now I'm flying along. I got 1 drop tank that's full of fuel. I got a red gear light. The temp's off the chart. And at some point, I could only get the flaps halfway down. That was my first landing. My first flight was 4 minutes. Anyway, turned out, he said, this is back in the early days of P-51s. He said, well, the radiator, you got to take off and you bring the throttle back and cool it a little bit, because you're probably going to have to rod the radiator, meaning you get a piece of wire and you clean the radiator out. That's the way we used to think back in 1979. Anyway, so I finally got the thing. I did another test flight second flight for about 20 minutes, then dropped him off in Fort Lauderdale, because that's where he lived. I jumped in the airplane. That was my 3rd flight. Landed at Tamiami to a ramp full of my friends. I threw my bags out and I started giving rides. I've been trying to share my passion ever since. Kermit Weeks, over and out.
Fabulous Flashbacks.
Okay, Kermit Weeks, Fantasy of Flight, and I'm standing here in front of, I think this was the 3rd Warbird I bought. First one was an AT6, second one was my P-51D, and this was the 3rd one, okay? It was owned by a guy named John Seidel, and it was up in Fort Lauderdale, and I saw it in Trade-A-Plane. I went up there and I cut a deal, and I pretty much had bought the airplane. And so he took me up. He was in the front seat, I was in the back, and the back's got a little short stick in there. And I got in there and he says, here, now you fly it. I grabbed it and I thought, oh my gosh, what have I just bought? This thing is heavier than crap. Well, I learned later that the stick in the front's much longer and it feels more like a normal set of controls. But anyway, this thing was done up in the Candy Clipper, and it was a paint scheme of a kind of a famous airplane that was a duck on what was the big Bataan, and it was the Bataan Death March, and before the Japanese took over the whole island, they basically, an airplane in this colors made 4 flights to the, the capital of, I think, Luzon or something. They're trying to get medical supplies and things like that. So we did that to honor. I got a couple of great videos with one of the mechanics that actually worked on this in World War II. I took him for a ride. Anyway, I had never been in a water in a seaplane in my life, okay? Pretty interesting story. And I knew somebody that actually flew seaplanes, PBYs, actually the Martin Mars during World War II. He was a hangar mate of mine, Monty Chumley. He flew out of Roosevelt Field, and he was part of the golden age of aviation. He was a really cool guy. Anyway, so I was asking him one time, and I said, hey, how do you take off and land a seaplane? And if you've ever been in a motorboat before, you know that sometimes when you get it up on the thing up there, and then all of a sudden it just kind of gets up on the step there. So he kind of explained that. I'd done skiing and stuff like that, so I kind of had a feel for that, water skiing. And so anyway, but I didn't have a seaplane rating, okay? Most people, eventually I went and got my seaplane rating in a Piper Cub on floats with like 85 horsepower. So I'm up flying around. A friend of mine's girlfriend or wife or whatever, I think it was a girlfriend at the time, they later got married. But anyway, so I said, hey, I'll give you a ride. So I took off out of Miami, the Weeks Air Museum. I'm out over Biscayne Bay, which is the big bay there just south of Miami, okay? And all of a sudden I start smelling like, oh my gosh, this smells like electrical smoke or something like that. And I'm thinking, oh my God, there's a fire. And I'm going, so I thought, well, I better put it in the water. So I landed. The first landing ever was in this airplane. First time I'd ever been in a seaplane in the water. So I landed, this was about 1.5 foot chop, and it's like choppy and it's bouncing. And the first thing I did is I got out, and of course when you are flying in the water, the wheels are, up here, okay? So I get out of the cockpit, okay, and I come down, I'm going, can I smell something up here? And of course the girl's in the back, she's thinking, later she says, oh, this is really cool, Kermit landed in the water, he's taking me for a ride. She didn't realize what was going on. So I get out of the cockpit, I come down here, and the first thing I do, I stand on the wheel there. Obviously nobody's on the brakes. I just about fell in the water. So I finally get out here and I come around and I look and I smell, and the water line's about here. And of course the waves, the salt water is kind of chopping and stuff. And anyway, I'm like, oh my gosh. And so I tried I started it up and I said, well, let me taxi in, because I was down around an area where I had some friends that lived, but they lived on like a little canal place. And there was like, the wooden pylons that you came in, it, shows you right red returning and going in and maybe numbers on them and stuff. So I started taxiing in, but the problem was the wind was from the north. And when I started to go, the canal I was trying to go in was east-west. And I'm sitting there taxiing this thing, and I'm coming in like this, and I'm going, oh man, this is not going to be a good deal. I'm going to get in there and I'm going to hit something. And then I thought that the Chalks seaplane base that used to fly the Mallards, back and forth to the Bahamas and stuff, they basically had a ramp on Government Cut that when you landed at Government Cut, you could go up the ramp into north, basically, okay? So I thought, well, I know how to land a Grumman Duck. Let me see if I can learn how to take one off. And then if I can always go over there if it still smells, land it, put the wheels down, and taxi up the ramp. So what happened was, I thought, well, okay, so let me remember what my friend said, pull the stick back, kind of get going, kind of get it on the step there. What I was not expecting, and there's like 1.5 foot chop, okay? This is not like a smooth Piper Cub lesson, okay? So I go to take off, I push the throttle, the power up, the spray is going over the top wing. I couldn't even see anything. And eventually it finally got up there, and then I kind of felt that little sweet spot and got it on the step, and I just kept holding it back, and it got up to probably about 65 miles an hour, it lifted off. And I thought, okay, well, I can, let's see what happens. So I started climbing, and I kept climbing and climbing. I got up to about 2,000 feet, and I was about probably, I'm going to say, 12 miles away from Tamiami Airport from Biscayne Bay. I'm not exactly sure what it was. But I lived on a lake there. And I thought, well, I used to water ski on my lake. And I thought, well, I know how to land a Grumman Duck. So let me just head towards the airport, because I couldn't smell anything now. I thought, well, let me head towards the airport. And if it's really bad, I'll just land on my lake behind my house, okay? And then if I don't make that, if I can make that and it starts smelling, I can land on the turnpike, you know, which was north-south. And then the next thing was the airport. So anyway, instead of heading to Government Cut and trying to go up their ramp and landed in the saltwater again, I basically went back to Tamiami, I landed the airplane, and it was at that point I said, forget this. We completely tore the airplane down. This was the first airplane restoration that I did with my people, you know, my mechanics that I had hired. Anyway, so we did this. This was our first one. And it was pretty cool. And then later, you know, so I could be legal, I went up to Jack Brown Seaplane Base just south of me here in Winter Haven and got my seaplane rating in a Piper J3 on floats. Anyway, pretty cool.
Fabulous Flashbacks.
Let's head out to the grass. Raven, are you gonna do it?
No, sir. I got my sandals on today.
Yeah, it was actually a joke.
Thanks.
What's easier?
Well, we're interested, Kermit.
Right over there. Okay, so basically to show you how this thing works here. So it turns on and off here. Okay. And you can see the light there. And so, you know, and it's got plenty of charge in it. Okay. But basically, you start on the back. But what happens is once it gets up to a certain point, it's going to start moving forward. You can go back, but you don't even fart with that at this point, okay? And then it's basically just leaning. It's just like a surfboard. And I'll just, I mean, I'll hold you the first time, but basically, once you get up, see, it doesn't do anything in the back there, but then it starts moving. So you basically lean forward like this, spin around, and then to get off, theoretically, if you just lean back, you're going to start going back. So I just jump up, but what I'll do is I'll just kind of just hang on to me to start, okay? Well, which way do you go? That way? That's the way I go. Okay, so just use my shoulders to. Okay, so tilt forward a little bit. There you go. Yeah. Just you'll get used to it. You'll get used to it. Yeah, go there. You see, once you get going, you'll get better. If you have a problem, just jump off. Yeah, see, but be real careful about trying to go too far like this. You know, just make wider turns to start off. Whoop.
Too far.
Yeah, no, wait a second. Just go ahead and use me if you need me. Slow, just start. There you go. Yeah, it's easier if you're moving. If you go faster, you're moving. Yeah, the slower you go, the harder it is. But the faster you go, the more opportunity you got to.
On your face?
Yeah. Yeah, I finally got to where I can go goofy foot down the runway too, so I can go both ways, you know. I'm now a trans one-wheeler. Good job. It's fun.
Yeah.
And when you first start out, you think, oh my God, I need to come, blah, blah, blah. And then after a while, you just get so used to it. I mean, if you go really, really fast, I've heard there's times it'll lock up on you, you know, so then you're going to hurt yourself. But
Very cool.
yeah, see all that rocking back and forth, if you're not moving, then you're just setting yourself up to fall, but you're doing good. And so when you first come up, just push it to the point to where you're just past, now you got to go right to level. There you go. Just to stand on it and it's not moving, it's too hard.
Okay.
Yeah, you got to be moving. Yep. And also
It's also a
too,
good core workout.
Yeah, I think that it helps. You know, if you're late, you're kind of going like this. You might want to try going a little bit like on a
Angle?
45.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's a pro at it.
Anyway, let's try it a little bit like that. Like 45, or about like that angle on the
When I grow up, I'm gonna be like Kermit.
I don't want to grow up, and I still want
Yeah,
to.
Yeah. Goals.
Yeah, well, there you go. Just jump off when you do that. You can't lean back there.
She don't like us.
Just go. Start going. Yeah, don't try and just stand there. There you go.
Have you ever skateboarded? Like on a skateboard?
Not really. No, I mean I've done it, but
But yeah, not
I never practiced that. I never owned one. And like, you know, when you first start, you see how he's blah, blah, blah. After a while, you just get used to it. You just go. And I run the dogs all around the runway. You want to try it? Just a little bit. No, seriously.
I don't
You
even know
just
if I could,
hold on to me.
Yeah. I don't.
There you go. I just start moving forward, and then you lean back. If you need me, just there you go. There you go. There you go. That's it. So if you do fall off, it's better just jump off. Okay.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
actually went.
the more you do, the easier it'll get. Okay. No.
I'll drive my boom lift. I need to control it. I'll use my Lamborghinis.
All right, you gonna try some
Thank you. No.
No, it's
Okay.
good.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kermit.
Awesome.
Like we're
okay.
always pushing our boundaries.
I can't
Yeah.
carry you all back.
That's
but-
okay.
Good job.
Fabulous Flashbacks.